Will 2025 be Kyle Whittingham's final season leading Utah football? We're going to discuss on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If it's your first time tuning into our show, make sure you like and subscribe to these episodes. Brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app to start today and start planning your future bets now. My name is JT Wichita, and on today's show, I was joined by several guests at Big 12 Media Day. Kicking things off first with Shehan Jeyarajah of CBS Sports. Him and I discuss if Kyle Whittingham will retire after the 2025 season. Then Pete Sousa, kind enough to stop by, the host of Inside the 12 for ESPN Plus and the Big 12 Network, joins me to talk about the future of the Big 12 and NIL's place in college athletics. Then BYU TV's Spencer Linton joins me to discuss the best rivalry in college football, Utah and BYU. All that and more coming up on a loaded episode of Locked On Utes. The best-dressed man at Big 12 Media Day is kind enough to join me now. Shehan Jeyarajah, CBS Sports college football writer here at Big 12 Media Days. We've heard a lot happen this week. Kyle Whittingham's made some interesting comments on retirement, talk about how, hey, if they had a better year last year, he might have walked away. I feel like barring another disappointment, this will be his last year. How do you view that situation in Salt Lake City?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that, he's said it in the past, right? He doesn't want to coach past 65, and he's 65 right now. And I think that he knows that he's accomplished most of what he wants to accomplish in his career. He got his Rose Bowl appearances, his conference championships, and, they felt like they had a roster that was good enough to win the Big 12 last year if they don't have the quarterback injury. So I think that as well, if he feels like he's leaving the program in a good place, in a place where it's ready to be handed over to obviously Morgan Scalley, the defensive coordinator and coach in waiting, I do think that he would be ready to go. Now, we asked him directly this morning. We had him one-on-one and about how will you know? And he's like, when I don't feel excited to go to work every day is going to be when I'm done. That's obviously a little unknowable, but I do think this is probably it.
If Utah wins the Big 12 this season, will be the reason why.
Well, I think that more than anything else, it's going to be that offensive line and just the way that it's going to be able to change up the offense, right? Because you look last year, it's not just the fact that the offense struggled. It was one of the worst offenses in the country, right? And when you look at what this roster is this year, both in terms of what they bring in, the quarterback they bring in, the structure of what they want to do, and then most importantly, that offensive line, the floor is so much higher than what it's been in years past. This is a team that if the offense is just okay, should be more productive than what they've been the past couple of years. And I think that also I love the fact that Isaac Wilson came back and you have a bit more depth in that quarterback room. It's not, a walk-on or a true freshman potentially back there. But I think that the difference has to be the offensive line has to adjust quickly, keep Devin Dampier healthy, and also give them an opportunity to be super dynamic running the ball.
If Utah is 6-6 or just not even in the championship conversation by the end of the season, why will that be?
Yeah, I think that it probably more than anything is a quarterback injury again, right? And here's the reality. The last 2 years were derailed by quarterback injuries, and then they brought in an offense where their quarterback's going to get hit a lot. So that's just part of this, right? But I think that, obviously he's dealt with he's a very tough kid is what it comes down to. And they're also going to do things to protect him, I think, as well, especially when you talk about with that offensive line. But, again, I just think that he is somebody who can step in, know the system from day one, be ready to go right away. And we just don't know that about the rest of the roster, right? We don't know necessarily that there's a lot of upside and explosive upside on the roster outside of that. And so I think that if they struggle, it's going to be because they just don't get what they need from that quarterback position.
This is a Utah team that obviously has high expectations for Devin Dampier, this roster, and the team as a whole. And they have quite the week one matchup against UCLA. Nico Iliamava is the week one matchup too. So what do you make of that matchup? Do you think Utah is the favorite right now in that one to you?
It's going to be a lot of fun. I do think Utah deserves to be the favorite and a highly watched game. It's going to be a really big time matchup. It's going to be a huge quarterback matchup, like you mentioned, with Devin Dampier versus Nico. And obviously it's a classic Pac-12 matchup as well. So when you have an opportunity to play against one of these teams in the Big Ten or SEC, like, it is huge for the Big 12 that they come out, have good performances, and prove themselves. Because, you know, if you win those games, that builds you a case and builds the league credibility heading forward. I think it's a massive matchup in non-conference play.
From the Big 12 Conference's future standpoint, what comments have you found most interesting this week, whether it be from a coach or Commissioner Yormark?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I mean, one, obviously, the Big 12 sees itself as a multi-bid league in the college football playoff in 12 or 16. And I think that shows a lot of confidence and shows a lot of faith. And, you know, Brett Yormark has never been one who's been afraid to speak things into existence. He spoke Utah joining the conference into existence in a lot of ways. But I think that also you look at the playoff era, like, this is a league that's had multiple top 12 teams most years. It's had multiple top 16 teams most years. Last year was actually a little bit more of an outlier than in years past. So I think that long term, you know, they are really betting on themselves to produce consistent national contenders, teams that are consistently in the playoff discussion, that have credibility with the committee and AP poll voters and all these people. And again, they are being very upfront about that. They need their teams to perform, and they need national perception to improve. It's a big gamble, but I think one that may pay off.
I like the 5-11 model. I think it's the right way to handle it. Do you agree? And do you think that's what we're going to get?
I do agree. I do think that's what we're going to get. I mean, here's the reality, right, for the Big 12, is that it is a safer thing to do to guarantee yourself 2 spots. But then you put in the competitive standing of the sports that you are half of what the Big 10 and SEC are, right? And that's not something that you can adjust on the fly, right? So if you have the next 10 years, and if you have an opportunity at a time that, by the way, I would argue the top of the SEC is coming down. It's still above the Big 12, but it's coming down, right? I mean, Arizona State nearly took out the SEC's best team last year. Notre Dame did take out Georgia last year, right? So, like, I think that it's a big opportunity for the Big 12 to prove itself. And so, long term, I do think that they're going to want to at least go through that process of having it decided on the field. Because I also think that the idea of having a multi-bid situation is probably going to be something that's still there in 3 or 4 years.
Will this league belong to Texas Tech for the foreseeable future? You have the story on them, and look, we know what they're able to do NIL-wise. We do have the, clearinghouse, and there's things that are coming in to try and say, hey, it's going to be fair for everyone, but NIL feels like it's always going to play somewhat of a role. Do you think this league is going to be Texas Tech's, or do you think we'll see it continue to be a league of parity?
It's not going to be as much parity as it is right now, certainly. I think that also 2024 was such a moment in time because you have the 4 new additions, you have the 4 additions from the year before that. Like, half the league was new and didn't know each other. I think that there will be more long-term teams that establish themselves. And when you think about Texas Tech, obviously they're killing it in recruiting right now. But I do also think, like, this is a program that plans to, again, depending on who you ask, they do plan to also abide by rev share. They're being very aggressive with it, with the way that they're structuring contracts and things like that. But they're not necessarily trying to, go way above budgets, go outside of the system, all that sort of stuff. And they're also not the only team that's being very aggressive in NIL, right? We've seen that, Utah's done a really good job on the recruiting trail. I think BYU, of course, has done a tremendous job. Baylor, TCU have done tremendous jobs. They're having historic classes right now. So I think that, yes, the resource that Texas Tech has and the ease of which they can instill it, I guess you could say, that's going to give them a really good chance to have a special year. At the same time, I think that there's a reason that they put so much into this season. They know that they have to prove it on the field before it can be anything lasting.
Last question for you. Utah wants to be one of the best teams in the Big 12, obviously. I think this is the team that's going to finish in the top 4 of the conference. Do you have them there currently? If so, why? And if not, also why?
I have them right on the top of my second group. So my top 4 right now would be Texas Tech, Baylor, Arizona State, and Kansas State. And then kind of at that 5-6 spot, I'd have BYU and Utah kind of duking it out.
BYU still?
Yeah, I think that defensively, BYU is a really special team. I think that got lost in their last season, especially with some of the the highlights and stuff that their quarterback had. But this is a defensive system that was a top 5 unit last year, and offensively, like again, they have proven to be more consistently dynamic. They've got great talent back at receiver and running back. Now, again, like I had them in my top group until the whole situation happened, right? But I think that there are more knowns on that roster than people give it credit for. And again, because like I'm very excited about Utah, and I think that they probably have one of the highest upsides in the conference. They got more downside, I think, too, than most of the other teams in that top group, just because you're bringing in a new system, a first-year coaching staff, a brand-new quarterback that I have questions about whether you can throw it at a P5 level. Like, we just don't know that as yet. But I do think that those two are kind of right on the cusp, and we'll probably find the answer to that whenever they play this year.
Can't wait to get it underway. Shehan Jeyarajah, thank you so much. Make sure you guys give him a follow on X. What is your handle?
Yeah, at Shehan Jeyarajah on all platforms.
Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by Wayfair. As the summer winds down, there's something nice about getting back into a routine you love. And Wayfair makes it easy to set yourself up for the season ahead. From bedding and lines to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair is your one-stop shop for refreshing your home. With Wayfair, it's so convenient to find exactly what I need all in one place and at a price that fits my budget. How much of a hassle can it be constantly scrolling and going to store after store to try and find everything? Well, that's what's nice about Wayfair. They have everything you need in one place. This is the perfect time to get your home ready, whether that's organizing, upgrading your workspace, or making weeknight dinners easier. Get organized and refreshed and back to your routine for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Pete Sousa from Inside the 12 with the Big 12 Network. What do you think the future of NIL is like in the Big 12 too, especially when you have heavy hitters like a Texas Tech?
Well, I like the way it's going in the Big 12 because, years ago, a school like Iowa State, they didn't have, $20.5 million to work with. Now they do. And schools like Texas Tech, we just saw, their huge recruiting muscle flexed again with the recent 5-star offensive lineman. But reports are that a lot of that is the NIL portion, right? Outside of that house settlement, which is where you would get the $20.5 million figure from. So all that stuff has to be run through Deloitte. There's logistics now and a justification for all of the outside, per se, resources that are coming in to fund these college football programs. And I think that is a very good thing. We have an influx of money for schools like an Iowa State. That's just a for instance, right? And maybe even a Utah at times. And so I think that the fact that there is that influx and also there's now, and this is a magic term that everybody loves to use now, JT, guardrails. Yeah. Right? But there really are more guardrails, and there may be more guardrails coming. We're in a much better spot than we were a year ago at this time. And I think that's a very good thing.
I would agree. It feels like we are in a much better spot, too. But the Big 12 is a conference. It does feel like they're in a good spot. But obviously, Brett Yormark has high aspirations. He wants to multi-bid league in the college football playoff. Do you see a path for that this year?
I really do. I think that the depth of this league is something that has become so eye-opening for someone like me who not only covers the league in depth, but you also back off sometimes with the national perspective and look from 30,000 feet. There are 6 or 7 teams that could be playing in the Big 12 championship, right? We could be talking about that in November. But there's also those 6 or 7 teams that I think could be in the conversation for the national college football playoff. And I don't know that I have, especially since, the Brett Yormark era started 2022, July of 2022. This conference is totally different than it was back then. And I think a lot of people, myself included, thought if the Big 12 loses Oklahoma and Texas, they're not going to have that national juice anymore, right? This is one of the most culturally relevant conferences in America. And when you think about the success of the Big Ten and the SEC, to mention the Big 12 in the same breath and to have that be legitimate, it's not just some PR spin, is really cool. And so I think that is one of the things that when you talk about the Big 12 and different teams potentially being in the championship game or in the running for that, I think you could talk about it. Goes as deep nationally too. on a national landscape, those teams could be all potentially in the college football playoff.
Is Utah part of that group? And what do you think, and just your thoughts on Utah entering this season?
100,000% they are in that group. I think Utah, they're not a sleeper. Okay. I think Utah is a school, a program you look at now. College football has really, Utah has been a part of that landscape, top 25, top 20 landscape for as long as I can remember. Last year, I see as not just, I guess it was a down year. I wouldn't call it, it was a down year.
Missed a bowl game.
It was a down year. I don't want to call it I'm flirting with calling it a fluke, but it was unfortunate to see the program suffer because of injuries, right? Specifically Cam Rising for so long. Now, I think with Devin Dampier, you are moving into a situation where you're going to have a healthy quarterback. Obviously when the season starts, and you have a very good quarterback. So when you look at Kyle Whittingham and all he's done in the past, I also think Oklahoma State will bounce right back as well. So Oklahoma State and Utah, two teams that were picked to win the Big 12 last year, atop the Big 12, I don't think they're going to stay at the bottom, which is where they ended up last year. I truly believe that the body of work that that Utah has put together, and Oklahoma State has put together, I think that we'll see that once again this year.
Well, they have a great body of work and tradition with football. They're trying to tap back into that with basketball. You mentioned you called
hoops.
We're talking a little bit of hoops
Come
here
on,
because you said you've called Utah basketball,
Yeah.
and this is just a program that I'm optimistic. I think everyone wants to see Utah be really good at basketball again, right? Not just 10th in the Big 12 as a fun surprise, but actually contend. And this is a tough conference to do it. You know what it takes to do in this conference, and also say so what does it take, and also what does Utah need to do to get there? Because they're obviously a little far off right now.
I think it's suspicious that you asked me about Utah basketball, and Jake Hatch from Locked On Cougars just got up and left the table.
That's true.
So here's where I'm going with this too. What the blueprint that BYU cut out with Kevin Young, right? And that is the place everybody wants to play because there's an NBA developmental feel to it, and also there's resources there, right, that have worked out in NIL, getting student athletes, some of the best in the country, to commit to BYU. Utah, no stranger to success, basketball and football-wise, but you look down the street and you see in Provo, what they're doing is particularly special. So what do? You get a Utah guy in Alex Jensen, right? And anytime you can get a Rick Majerus extension back into that program, you've got the fan base and the alumni interested. But in Alex Jensen, you've got a tremendous coach. So there's two avenues right there that I think Utah really went down and experienced great success because Alex Jensen is going to be the guy this year. Not like Kevin Young still won't be, but players are going to want to play for Alex Jensen because he knows what it takes to matriculate into the NBA. That will become very attractive to student athletes. And who doesn't love Salt Lake City? For real. It's not like a hidden gem. It's everybody knows it's awesome. But I think I called about 3 games last year at the Huntsman Center, right? Yeah. It's a special place. So I think it's time, and I don't think it's going to be any kind of surprise when the Utes are back in the national conversation.
Last question for you. I believe that Utah is a good fit in the Big 12, and what do you think of the partnership so far?
I would ask you guys. We love you. Okay, the Big 12 loves Utah. It's up to you guys. How do you guys feel about the Big 12? I think Utah is a great addition to the conference. I think the relationship is going much, much better than I think if you're really close to it, you hear some of the noise, and that's what we do. We love that. We talk about it.
That's a great point on how close we are to it.
Yeah, sometimes it's like reading a book that closely. You can't read it, you know what I mean? But if you look back, I'm like, oh, this actually is working out great. And I think last year, look, it's been a tough go for Utah so far in the Big 12. And I don't think that has anything to do with the conference being too good for Utah. No, Utah can handle itself, as fans know. And I think that this year, with the success, I believe, of Utah football and Utah basketball, I think we'll be talking about how great this relationship is more publicly and closer to the fire than we have been recently. I think it's a great relationship, and I think, honestly, I understand the change because Utah was such a perennial power in the Pac-12, and that was such a special conference. But time, as it moves on, I think it'll heal any kind of wound.
That's how I feel too, and I think Utah's a great fit in this conference. The rivalries, the animosity, and literally there's a ton of animosity towards Utah, and I think that's just good for the sport, so it works out well. Pete, thank you so much for joining me. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Future Days, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on the NFL season predictions, so whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before Week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. You know, for me, MVP this season, I got a feeling that Patrick Mahomes is actually going to come roaring back for the title. I think the Chiefs are better on the offensive line. I think they upgraded those receiving core. So for me, I'm going to say Mahomes MVP as we sit here right now. But if you want to get in on the action, you can visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. JT Wistersill of Locked On Utes back here with Spencer Linton of BYU TV. Spencer, whether it be in the Big 12 now or just in the new college football landscape with NIL and everything, how do you feel like the rivalry between Utah and BYU has transformed?
Well, obviously, Utah did such an incredible job in their build-up to getting an invite to, at the time, a Power 5 conference. They deserved it. They had played so well and created a championship culture between those unforgettable seasons in 2004 and 2008 and the Sugar Bowl championship. And so Utah expedited that timeline and made the most of it and were able to get into a lot of doors that previously they couldn't when it comes to recruiting and the financial boost you get from a Power 5 program. And so there was this understandable advantage that was created compared to a team like BYU who went independent. And so, look, everybody knew that BYU was trying to get on that even playing field with Utah and the rest of the power conferences and the power schools. And so when that invite came, it was, manna from heaven, if you will, to try and help BYU even that playing field. Now with the emergence of NIL, it's no secret that BYU has an incredible worldwide network. And if you can play within the rules with that network and you have the finances behind it to help your athletic program, then why not do it? So, yeah, it has helped BYU expedite their own timeline to catch up and now get on an even playing field with the likes of Utah and the rest of the Big 12 conference schools. Frankly, it happened a lot faster than I thought it was going to happen. Like it's been wild to watch. But I love that they're back in the same conference. I love that they are playing that every year, that's not going to go away. BYU always have a home and road situation with Utah in basketball and men's and women's basketball, and they'll always play each other in all the Olympic sports and certainly in football. Like, I love that it's back, and I love that it's competitive, and I expect it to be a close game on a very, very even playing field for the foreseeable future. But, yeah, certainly the change in the landscape of NIL and finances has just, within the rules, I should know, allowed BYU to jumpstart that the ability to move into a power conference and adapt quickly.
They have adapted really quickly, and they've adapted quickly as well to the new portal, and they've been able to add some Utah guys as well. Keanu Tanavasa, Carson Ryan coming over. What kind of an impact do you think they will have on this BYU offense and defense?
Utah fans know that Keanu is a special player. There's a reason that there was so much anxiety and frustration and, frankly, anger when a player of that caliber leaves your program to go to your rival school. Trust me, BYU fans know how much it hurt to lose the Fano brothers to Utah, and that's worked out well for Utah. Those guys are studs. Like, it's never easy to lose great players, especially through the portal, to your rivals. So it's just how it goes. There's give and take. Utah's flexing the Fanos, and now BYU has the luxury of having a great player like Keanu Tanavasa. I think he'll clearly be BYU's best defensive lineman. He's a legitimate NFL prospect. And according to Matt Miller of the NFL Network, one of the top 5 defensive tackles in the draft going into next year. I asked Keanu earlier today, aside from him, who are you most excited about, and how do you feel about the entirety of the defensive line? he feels like they're kind of a sleeping giant, that people don't understand how good that defensive line can be for BYU. So really excited to see what they can do in disrupting. Like that is the message. Like, his job is to disrupt. The defensive line's job is to disrupt. So I think that there will be more pressure with the implementation of Keanu and a transfer like Justin Wilcox from Oklahoma State. You asked about Carson Ryan. That dude was the spring football MVP, if there is such a thing at BYU. Disconcerting that he had developed such nice chemistry with Jake Retzlaff, and now that's gone. So, like, what will Carson be with the new quarterbacks? How much will the tight end be used with whoever is put in to be a quote-unquote game manager for BYU? But I hope that BYU doesn't go away from the tight end, because I think the Cougars have a real opportunity to get the most out of Carson. He's a good player. I feel like he's been underutilized in many ways wherever he's been in college football. And so I just hope he finally gets a chance to show what he's capable of doing. But no doubt, hurts to lose great players. BYU is going to take advantage, and Utah will take advantage of the guys they got through the transfer portal. And how about the staff that Utah's got? Yeah. Jason Beck, one of my close friends. I think he's going to be awesome. What do you think about him? I think he's going to be awesome for Utah. Like, you watch what he does. Think about all the quarterbacks he's coached. Okay, why did Tanner Mangum have his best year at BYU as a freshman? Jason Beck was his quarterbacks coach, then went to Virginia. He coached 2 NFL quarterbacks, and Bryce Perkins and Kurt Benker at Virginia. Now he goes and gets Dampier. Like, would I be surprised at all to see Dampier take a huge step forward and Utah have a great season? No. I think Jason Beck is going to be awesome for Utah.
I do as well, and this was an awesome interview. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you a lot, Spencer. That's going to do it for this one. That's going to do it for today's Locked On Utes. Want to know from you guys. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'll be back with you on tomorrow's Locked On Utes. If you're in the market for a second listen every day, make sure you check out the portal, where Brian Smith does a great job of running through all of the latest happening across college football, portal entries, signings, rumors. Find the portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast today.